right, Rob, last night, look, it was going on during the game last night, during the show, I should say. Justin Fields was leading Chicago to what would become a 40-20 win over a decent Washington Commanders team.
Nobody saw that coming, Chris.
No,
nobody.
No.
I don't care what anybody says.
We all gave Denver flack for only beating Chicago 31-28, but maybe the Bears are starting to put it together. And Washington, look, their defense has been bad all year, so maybe, they're just playing well against bad teams. But give them credit. They got their win. They broke their 14-game losing streak. And for the purposes of this conversation, I think most people, Rob, because everybody's like, okay, what does the future hold for the Bears? Do they have their quarterback? And that would be, of course, Justin Fields, Rob. Last night, 15 for 29, 282 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Did you see enough last night to tell you that this is their guy? Like, this is your quarterback, Chicago. Now just build around him properly, and eventually you might be able to make some noise.
No. But it doesn't mean that I don't think he can't play. I'm not saying that. I just need more. The sample size, Chris, unfortunately, if you want to be honest and look at sample size, we got way more bad sample size than good. Yep. So I have to look at that. And I know of late, the last 2 games, Denver's bad, and they came back against, got a big spanking on Washington. So those are all positive stuff, but I just need to see more. I couldn't
defenses.
Yeah, I couldn't commit to either one, right? They got blew out by Buffalo, didn't they?
Blown out, yeah.
No, blowed out. They got blowed out. That's what they say in the barbershop.
They got blew out.
They got blew out or blowed out. They got blowed out. You heard that in the barbershop.
Yes.
They got blowed out.
But my thing, Rob, is that I do want to see more, as you said, because look, people might say last year Justin Fields has some moments, and he had a lot of moments running the football. What is different now is these last 2 games when he's had 4 touchdowns in each of the last 2 games, only 1 interception in those games. It's been passing the ball. And that's what I like. Now, again, to your point, I need to see more of it before I'm ready to say,
we said that about Kyler Murray.
Guy.
Don't you remember? And Chris, you remember?
Murray had a lot more.
Had a lot more good tape than bad.
His first 2 years, I think it was a Pro Bowler both years.
Right, and we still were like, I wouldn't give him the deal yet. I need to. Right, yep. You remember that? I mean, we were like, I need just a little bit more. Can we see one more season?
And I do think teams are learning, right? I don't expect Chicago to pay him. Why would you? Why? I mean, we're a long ways from the end of the season, so let's see it play out. But there's no reason at this point to give him the huge bag and make him your quarterback for the next 6 years. And so I liked what I've seen the last 2 years.
2 weeks.
2 weeks, I'm sorry. Remember, he only completed 15 to 29 passes. So it's not like he was just dropping dimes left and right. Now, he was good. He threw some nice deep balls and things like that. But his accuracy, which has been an issue, was a problem last night as well. Rob, 3 of their 5 games, he's completed less than 56% of his passes.
Right. And nowadays, Chris, people are doing 70 on regular.
Yeah.
Like 70.
Because, they're dinking and dunking and they can't get hit. And, it's just a passer's game now. And you're right. And so I want to see it a little longer. And, Rob, I will say this because I've even, I've heard people say it and sometimes I've thought it as well and maybe said it. You look at a Justin Fields. You look at a Daniel Jones. You look at a Zach Wilson, Rob, and there are many others. And a lot of times people will give them a pass because, they got a terrible offensive line.
Right.
Oh, they don't have any great receivers. Oh. They got a defensive head coach. Oh, they're not calling plays to fit their skill set. And then, Rob, I look at a guy like C.J. Stroud. CJ Stroud is the worst enemy of that logic. Because CJ Stroud, who you know, Rob, I liked him the best out of all the quarterbacks
in college
in this draft. Now,
right.
I didn't not like Bryce Young, but I liked CJ Stroud.
Was he too small
more
for you, Bryce Young?
Well, I got questions, but I didn't go all the way to say, no, he's too small, don't draft him. You know, he can't be good. But one thing I did like about Stroud was that he was bigger, Rob. Like, he's a good-sized quarterback. And I just thought at Ohio State he was fantastic, as were all these guys, and that's another discussion, Ohio State quarterbacks.
That just haven't panned out.
They don't pan out. This is one that looks like he might completely break that mold, Rob, because in 4 games, he's got the Texans at 2-2. We know they've been bad for the last few years. Rob, he's 4th in the league in yards per game. He's got 6 touchdowns, no interceptions. That's obviously best in the league, TD to interception ratio. I'm sorry, he's 4th in the league in yards per game with 303. He's in the top 10 with passer rating, 100.6. The dude is playing fantastic football. He's top 5 in yards per attempt. And, Rob, his offensive line, you talk about depleted, the Giants got nothing on him. The Cowboys got nothing on him. The Jets have nothing on him. The Patriots have nothing on his offensive line. He's had like 5 offensive linemen injured. I mean, they are just, it's essentially the backup offensive lineman for the most part protecting him, and he is putting up historic numbers. This week, he might, if he doesn't throw an interception, he'll likely break the record, Rob, for most passes to start your career without an interception. He's already at number 5 right now.
Wow.
And he's like 24 away from tying Dak Prescott, believe it or not, who has that record.
And now he just throws interceptions all the time.
Well, last year he certainly did. This year he's been all right. He's only got 1. But so CJ Stroud, Rob, what I'm starting to look at this and say, okay, Joe Burrow, CJ Stroud, you know, yeah, you want it to be a good situation, of course. But, Rob, the guys that are special, when you're that guy, you kind of step in there wherever you're at and you get it done. Right? Tom Brady, Rob, we know it was his 2nd year. That Patriots team won 5 games the year before he stepped in. Was 0-2 when he took over as a starter because Drew Bledsoe got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And they all of a sudden ran off, like, won 11 games at least that year. And so, like, when you're that guy, Deshaun Watson in Houston, turned that, you know, got them playing good football, you know, when he was in Houston before all this mess. And so a lot of times, even if it is a quote-unquote bad situation, Rob, if you're that guy, you turn it around. And if you're just a guy, then you need everything else to be right for you. And so that is something that makes me say, you know what? Let me sit back and watch Justin Fields. And let me watch him actually with a dose of skepticism and see what he does over these next several games before I crown him and say he's my quarterback going forward.
I think it's fair. I think that that's fair. And it's not because I do believe that certain guys – you just, even if it's not, Chris, even if it's not as good as it probably could be, but you still see something to make you believe that they have it. You can't always point to it. You know, it's not tangible from just, you know, looking at somebody's stats or what they're doing. You just be like, this guy can play. You know what, Chris? Maybe Trevor Lawrence was like that. You know, like they were off to that terrible start. He was like, you can't miss. You remember coming out of college.
Well,
but
the whole situation with Urban Meyer.
And but you felt like this guy can play, right? Like, and then
He's been a little down this year. He was good last year.
But he was really good last year.
Right.
I'm just saying, like, you got to see what people were.
But yeah, he should pan out.
Could get. I just, there's just so much bad tape on Fields that I just need more. That's all. I just,
you know, there's
I can't endorse it yet.
There's a line of thinking out there, Rob, because everybody loves Caleb Williams out of USC. that right now, Chris Canty said that this Nick Wright, my partner on First Things First, has said it, that they should trade him right now while he's hot. Trade him to Atlanta. He'd be great in Atlanta.
Or the Jets. They need a quarterback.
Jets, he'd have to likely sit a year next year behind Aaron Rodgers unless they just let Rodgers just go. But, I've thought the Jets. That makes some sense to me if I was the Jets. But that they should trade him and essentially tank this year, and then you draft Caleb Williams. Here's my thing, though, Rob. If they were to do that, man, you better make sure you get Caleb Williams. You better make sure you get that first pick.
Well, that's the problem because if you don't get Caleb, then now what?
And this is a good draft. There's other Drake May and Bo Nix, and there's some other, there's four or five. I don't know if Shadur's coming out, but there's 4 or 5 quarterbacks people really like. But I can't look at any of them outside of Caleb Williams and say I definitely like them better than Justin Fields. And while I think Caleb's a sure thing, right, there pretty much is no sure thing at quarterback.
Nah,
right?
We've just seen too many who were outstanding in college and just didn't pan out for whatever reason. So it's not automatic. And
I think he will, but
Matt Leinart out of USC, Chris.
Vince Young?
He was supposed to be the number 1 pick, went back to college, and then wound up being like the 10th pick, and he didn't have a great career.
RG3?
Yep.
People forget how good RG3. That 1 year, they were doing documentaries, ESPN on him rehabbing. I mean, he was supposed to be the next big thing.
That's right. Probably cost me a job, but you know what I'm saying. That's how big he was.
But, so I would, you just got to be careful with that because you have to make sure. And they might be able to get a trade like that done at the end of the year anyway because they got Carolina's pick too. So they might be able to get the number 1 pick in a trade even at the end of the season, especially if Fields looks good the rest of the way. So we're going to throw it out to you guys, 877-99 on Fox. Simple question, is Justin Fields proven to you that he should be the Bears quarterback going forward, that he's a franchise type?